300 invitations. My diner's address. I find out when a cheerful stranger with a food truck calls to ask where to park, and when my staff will open the back gate. My name is Mae Tran. I own the Silver Comet Diner on a hot strip of Arizona Road. I bought it with years of envelopes inside envelopes and a deed I hung on my wall like a shield. By 3 p.m., my phone won't stop. Chairs, gift bags, a DJ asking about 220 volts and fog. Security wants stanchions. A photographer says they'll own the space. Own my space. I tell my manager, lock the back door, brew a fresh pot, the good kind. I call my son. 300 people, my diner, Saturday. Silence. Then, Mom, relax. It's Tesla's launch. Great for your socials. We'll pay a cleaning crew. A cleaning crew is not permission. Here's what I learned too late in life. I decide what happens on my property. I press my fingers to the deed, my name a little crooked from the day my hand shook, and say one word out loud. Mine. By noon the next day, SUVs crowd the shoulder, tripods, ring lights, people filming a party I never agreed to. And then a man in a baseball cap walks in with a binder and 6 words that might save my diner. Exclusive, locked, location, 2 days, paid. Tonight, someone learns a lesson about permission, and it won't be me. The calls kept coming. A rental company wanting to confirm their delivery window for 150 chairs and 300 branded gift bags. A DJ who asked whether my south wall had 220 volts and whether I'd allow fog. Security lead who asked about stanchions for a VIP line and how I wanted them to manage the sidewalk. The photographer wondered about best angles to own the space. And a local micro-celebrity's assistant wanted to know which booth would photograph best if a certain athlete decided to drop by for a feel-good pop-in. A production assistant asked me how I spelled my name and then told me they'd printed it wrong on the mock-ups, but they would fix it before Saturday if I could send my logo in vector format tonight. He said it like he was doing me a favor. By the 3rd call, I had the kettle on the burner for tea. By the 4th, my hand stopped shaking. Calm came back to me in stages, first in the shoulders, then in the jaw, then in the fingers that learned long ago how to carry plates hotter than anyone had a right to carry. I clicked the office door shut and dialed my son. "Mom, I'm in a meeting," he said, cheerful and distracted in the way of people who don't know what the room they're standing in cost. "Can I call you in an hour?" 300 people, I said. "My diner, Saturday." There was a silence you could pour into a glass. "Oh," he said. "I meant to loop you in. It's Tess's launch, Desert Glow, collaboration. We'll pay for a cleaning crew, and we'll tag the Comet in everything. Great for your socials." "A cleaning crew is not permission," I said. "Mom, relax," he said, as if my tenor were the problem and not the premise. "We're family, and the brand's covering everything. It'll be big. We'll do a free tasting menu. You'll run out of pies. You'll thank me." "I will thank you when you ask me for permission before you plan a party at my place," I said. He made a sound that meant I was a speed bump in a plan he liked. "We're at deck review. I'll swing by tonight, okay?" "Not okay," I said, and hung up. When I stepped from the office to the kitchen, Inez was there with a mug and questions she didn't ask. She'd been with me since the day I took over from Mr. Carlyle, who left me a coffee machine old enough to vote and a regular named Beans who used to put ketchup on his eggs and who now sends his daughter for egg whites on toast because the VA nurse told him to behave. Inez knows when to speak and when to set a mug on the counter and put a hand on the small of your back. "Luca again?" she asked. "Not just," I said. "Tessa and a brand with a name that sounds like a candle." I set the mug down and wiped my palms on a towel, because old habits are magnets for stress. It is strange to feel anger at a person you love and to feel at the same time the old loyalty in your chest behave like a dog that sits when you say sit, even if the house is on fire. When Luca was little, I worked night shifts at the motel and left notes in his lunchbox with jokes I took from Reader's Digest, and sometimes I filled his pocket with quarters so he could call me if he needed to hear my voice. When he got good at computers, he used to show me how to make little images slide on a screen, and he thought it was magic that I could make 7 plates land on one table in one trip. He lost his father to something sudden in the brain when he was 18, and I lost a man who turned the radio down every time a siren went by because he liked to send a quiet prayer in that direction. You can be furious at your child and remember the scar on his knee at the same time. Both things can be true. I brewed the tea strong and let it sit until it went from good to a little too bitter. Then I took the frame with my deed off the wall and set it on the desk in front of me. I don't know if other people talk to paper or if that is a habit you learn when your first language is the sound of other people's doors closing. I pressed my fingers on my name, Mae Tran, and I said out loud, mine. The door chimed, and a man walked in with a binder and the patience you hear in people who carry clipboards for a living. His name was Graham Pierce. He wore a baseball cap that said a network name and a shirt that had pockets for pens. He looked at the neon comet and smiled in a way that meant he had searched for a while before he found what he wanted. "You must be Ms. Tran," he said. "I must be," I said. "This place is a time machine," he said. "If you have time to talk, I think I have a perfect reason to pay you to let us borrow it." He laid the binder on the counter and turned it to me. Location agreements, insurance certificates, a thick packet with terms and a number typed in a square on the front page that made my eyebrows give me away. 2 days, he said, tapping the square. Saturday and Sunday. We'd need exclusive control of the interior and lot. We wire a deposit tomorrow and the rest on wrap. We're quiet, we're tidy, we're respectful, and we don't fight with Grandma if she wants her booth. We can work around the regulars if that's non-negotiable, but the exclusive is. Exclusive, I said. It is a small word that can carry a house. We hang signs, he said. We have security. No one gets on the lot unless their name's on my list. My guys don't even breathe unless I say so. We can do prep Friday night after you close if you like. 8,005, I said, reading the square again. You bring a pen? Graham smiled, the smile of a man who has learned to show respect with paper. We sat in my office with the deed, looking down at me like a witness. He read me clauses I didn't understand and showed me where the signatures go. He talked about a hold harmless and an indemnification that meant if a celebrity fell in love with my pie and slipped on her own tears, I wouldn't lose my diner. He emailed his producer from his phone while Inez took a picture of us like we had just won something. I wrote my name the way I write it when I am not in a hurry. When he left, I sat very still, paper under my hand, steam rising from the mug. It took me 45 years to learn how to sleep, and I swear a small portion of sleep entered my lungs while I watched a man in a baseball cap walk across my parking lot like he had been sent by the part of the world that believes in receipts. The rumor arrived before the sunset. Winslow is a small place on a big road, and nothing in a small place stays put. Deacon Alvarez came by on his way to the church office to lock the bulletin board because teenagers like to make jokes with the letters. He leaned a hip on the counter and looked at me with his sheriff eyes, even though he hasn't worn the badge in 10 years. "May, tell me you're not hosting some kind of neon rave for your boy and his girl on Saturday.
Half the ladies who keep the thrift stores open are talking about it, and the other half are printed extra flyers because they're hoping the kids will get bored and drop off their fast fashion donations. I am not hosting a rave, I said. I am hosting a contract. His eyebrows went up. Deacon thinks in terms the law understands and the Lord approves, and those two are sometimes cousins and sometimes strangers. He nodded like he was proud of a student and then lowered his voice. You need a calm voice, he said. You call me. Not to fight, to keep people from setting themselves on fire.
I have tea, I said, and he laughed. I slept better than the night before, which is to say I slept at all. I woke before dawn because life trains you and life cannot untrain you, and I made eggs myself, even though it's my own diner and I could ask any of my morning crew to put them on a plate just so. Before the coffee machine got loud, before Beans came in to ask what the special is, even though it's on a board he can read with his good eye, I stood in the dining room and looked at the booze and the chrome and the checkerboard floor that never gets truly white again, no matter how you scrub it. I touched the backs of booths, the way a person touches the chair someone they love sat in, and I said, again, mine. The brand sent a delivery truck at 9:30. A bus wrapped in an ad squealed to a halt, and the driver got out with his cap in his hand. Behind him came two guys with arms like bridge cables and clipboards like shields. They walked toward the door and then stopped at the sight of signs on stanchions. Filming in progress. Authorized crew only. The lot is closed to the public. For access, call Graham. Said the one with a pocket full of zip ties. We're here for the Collins launch. Graham stepped from behind a grip truck like a man in a storybook. He wore his laminated badge and a polite face. He explained exclusive lease, insurance, and the phrase he used in his world when a place belongs to you for a period. Locked location. He pointed to the sign that said the same thing. He did not say it unkindly, and he did not say it twice. They made calls and took pictures, and the bus pulled away very slowly, like a dog that stole a shoe and can't bring itself to let go of the taste. The desert makes sound carry in strange ways. By noon, I could hear the road a quarter-mile away as SUVs in shades of white and soft green and something that is not really pink pulled to the shoulder. People climbed out in dresses you couldn't sit in and shoes that wanted a different sidewalk. They stood with tripods and ring lights and whispered into phones and then stopped whispering and did not whisper anymore. A girl I recognized from my niece's feed did a slow turn with her arms out and said, "We're at the legendary Silver Comet," to 2 million people who aren't. Graham kept the set quiet. Crew moved like dancers who don't like to be seen. Men with belts full of tools kept the light like it was their job to persuade the sun. Inez passed out ice water and smiled like a saint who can fold a towel into a swan. I stood at the window and watched people be angry about a thing they had poured into their calendars. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't suffer it. I kept breathing. I kept my hand on the deed in my pocket. Luca arrived at 12:30 in a blazer and panic. He's handsome in the way men are when they believe youth will never stop being their friend. He was followed by Tessa in a white jumpsuit with a belt that looked like the part of a goldfish you see when it turns in the tank. Cameras trailed them the way little dogs trail expensive ankles. Luca put up his hands in the gesture he used to use in high school when he came home after curfew and tried to make a joke of it. "Mom," he said, breathless, "we need the space." Tessa smiled the way people smile when they want to sell you something and you are the thing being sold. "May," she said in a voice she uses when she speaks to strangers. She wants to make feel like family. "This collab is huge for you. We negotiated an A-list drop-in and a content collective is syndicating. Your diner will be everywhere." "But not permission," I said.
She lowered her voice without lowering her chin. Fine, we'll comp your day. 10 grand. Cancel these people. Everyone will understand. The network will. Graham stepped forward and said a kind of sentence that makes men like Luca blink. We are not these people. We are a production on an executed agreement. The lot is locked until Sunday, 8 p.m. We'll consider accelerating if my EP approves. We will not vacate at your request. Tessa's smile held for a beat and then changed so quickly I felt sorry for it. She looked at Luca the way you look at a teammate who missed a pass for the last time.
This is obstruction, she said, and we could sue. You could, I said. So could I. Or you could do something you don't like doing and ask me for what you want. Please, Luca said, soft, in a way that made me think of the night he broke his arm and tried not to cry because he didn't want me to be frightened. Mom, please, don't do this today. People flew in. We sent 300 invitations. It will ruin us. You did this today, I said, and ruin is not what you fear. What you fear is looking like people who forgot their manners in front of strangers. The crowd was a mood instead of a group, a mood that hums and mutters and records. A woman old enough to have driven Route 66 when it was mean and wild stood with a hand on her lower back and said, I took off work for this. A young man with hair like a hedge said, is this a scam? Someone in a tie that cost someone's rent said, do you know who... and then stopped because he does not live in a town where that sentence ends well. Deacon appeared out of nowhere like he does when teenagers are about to make a bad choice in a parking lot. He walked between my boy and me and set his hands out, palms forward, the way a person does when he wants to calm bees. May, he said. Lucas, Miss Collins, Mr. TV Man. He nodded at Graham and then at the ring of eyes and phones. Let's have a talk. Winslow style. Faces, not feeds. We stood just inside the door where the air conditioner could do something good. The light from the big window made us look better than we deserved. I could smell coffee and hot metal in the desert through a crack in the door, and somewhere a baby cried. Because somewhere there is always a baby crying. May, Deacon said in a voice he uses during funerals and domestic disputes, you've got law and paper and right on your side. You also have love in your heart for your boy because God forgives fools and mothers go beyond God. Lucas, Miss Collins, you have 300 people who keep getting told the world revolves around them and you gave them a plan without an owner. That is not a crime. It is a sin against manners. Tessa's chin trembled in a way that tells you a person has good practice making it stop. People are watching, she said. Brands are watching. If we cancel, we become a case study for how not to launch our team. Our team will be... If, I said, no. You canceled the moment you forgot to ask the person whose name is on the deed. Deacon folded his hands. May, he said softly, there is grace that teaches and grace that scorches. Which lets you sleep? I will not cancel my contract, I said. The Comet is a set until 6. After 6, if there's dignity in the plan, we can talk. After 6, the sun is gone, Tessa said, a problem that seemed to be a math to her and a blessing to me. Graham adjusted the brim of his cap. I can accelerate if my EP approves. We can strike for an empty lot by 4:45, clean by 5:30, but we do not leave a minute before the paperwork tells us to. Deacon looked at me. I watched my boy's face and wished for a moment that he had inherited the part of me that loved silence a little more than applause. He gave me the look he gave me when he was 5 and wanted to be allowed to bring a frog into the house. It did not work then either. but I felt it in the same place.
4 conditions, I said, non-negotiable. Tessa crossed her arms, then uncrossed them because crossing said the wrong thing in a video. She pulled her shoulders back and looked at me like a student who senses a pop quiz. Luca lifted his chin in surrender. From now on, I said, any event that touches my diner needs 1 month's notice and written approval. You put it on paper, and I sign it. You break it once, you are barred. Not for a week, not until I forgive you, forever. Luca nodded first, the way he used to, when he didn't fully understand a bill I placed in his hand, but he knew it mattered. Second, I said, if you want to use my place as a backdrop for your content, you will pay $1,200 a month in rent, not just when you ask, every month you use it, and you will cover cleaning, utilities during shoots, and staff overtime. If you don't shoot here, you don't pay. If you do, you pay. No favors. Cash is respect in envelopes. Done, he said quick. Third, I said, tonight, if there is a tonight here, you will publicly recognize me as the owner and host on a microphone and on camera. Not a tag, not a shout out at a corner. You will say my name and you will say, I make the rules here. Tessa's eyes flickered like a neon that can't decide whether to die. That's aggressive, she said. It's corrective, I said. And the fourth, Deacon asked, because he knows the way you leave a lesson with a final line. The fourth is this. Your accounts will post a statement telling the truth. You announced a party at a place you did not own. You sent invitations with an address without permission. You commit to respecting small businesses and their owners and to asking before using anyone's place as a set. You pin it for 30 days. If you apologize and then bury it under the next sunrise, it was content. If you let it live when it's not convenient, it becomes something you learned. Silence stood with us like another person. The crew pretended not to listen and listened anyway. The desert pressed a hand to the glass and coughed dust. I could hear the highway. You want to humiliate us, Tessa said softly. I want to teach you something I didn't know how to teach him when he was 18. Luca turned his face toward the floor and then toward me, and when he lifted his eyes, I did not see the many charming lies he could tell himself when the mirror loved him a little too much. I saw my boy. He took a breath and spoke plainly. We accept, he said. Tessa looked at him, then at the road where the people who followed her had been thinking of her as a lighthouse all day. She sipped air like it was hot tea and nodded once. We accept, she said. The afternoon turned like a song changing keys. Graham made calls and moved hands, and a set that had been a quiet orchestra of competence turned into a double-speed sprinter. The camera moved like a bird that remembered it had wings. Lights came down, tape peeled up, gel slid back into crates. Men with gloves that looked like they were made from truck tires coiled cable in circles that lay flat like they were supposed to. Someone kissed the jukebox the way you kiss a baby's head when you leave for a business trip. By 5:30 Knife's lot looked like it had been empty all day except for the scuffs on the asphalt that Inez wiped like she was blessing them.
While it changed, Deacon and Inez worked the crowd the way you work dough that has too much air in it. They set up shade where shade was cruel and wouldn't stay. They handed out water like it was part of being human. They took names for a list because if you can't have everyone, you pick with intention. We capped it at 50 because 50 you can feed, and 50 you can look in the eye, and 50 you can ask to put their phones down if they remember how to do that. The sun went, thank God. It left a strip of pink on the edges of the world, and then gave us the kind of blue that I used to hunger for when I was new here, a blue with room for forgiveness. The neon comet threw light on the chrome like a memory you want to keep. Inside, Inez turned the coffee to low and set pies in the carousel and polished silver with a towel that belonged to her mother. I smoothed my apron, even though I was not wearing one. Old habits don't die so much as lie down and listen. Tessa came to me before we opened the door. She had taken off the belt that looked like a goldfish and put her hair in a way that made her look less like something in a magazine and more like a person you could find in a mirror if you looked long enough. Thank you, she said. Don't thank me. Listen. I heard. She said, I heard, and I thought about the coffee truck that used to come to my mom's salon when I was a kid, and how they moved it without asking, and the owner cried, even though she was not a crier. I made a career out of telling people where to stand, and I forgot that some places already have owners. Good, I said. Keep that sentence. It's better than merch. We opened the door. The night entered like a polite guest. 50 people came in with bracelets on and a look of hunger that wasn't just for pie. They took seats and they looked up at the small stage by the window where Inez sometimes lets the church kids rehearse their songs on Thursday nights. There were no fog machines, no shimmer walls, no expensive alleys for the camera to walk through and pretend the world is a runway. There was chrome and checkers and coffee and a jukebox that works if you hit it with your hip. Tessa started, and she did it right. She did not lead with excuses or with a drift of words designed to spray perfume on a garbage can. She took the mic and put both hands on it and let her voice be a human voice. Before we begin, she said, I owe you a truth. We announced a party at a place we didn't own. We sent 300 invitations without asking the woman whose life built this diner. That was wrong. We are here because she allowed it, and we are here under her rules. Mae Tran is our host. She makes the rules here. She looked at me then, not like a supplicant or a store mannequin, but like a neighbor. The room did a human thing. It went quiet for a beat and then applauded in a way that did not feel like it had been choreographed by anyone's PR team. Deacon raised his chin a fraction, which in Deacon's body language is the same as throwing a hat in the air. I took the mic. I did not plan to. I had thought I might let the room marinate in the fact that a person said something true into a device designed to erase nuance. But a sentence rose in me, and I decided to let it out.
My name is Mae Tran, I said. This diner is the Silver Comet. I came to this country with one pair of shoes and a plastic bag with a change of clothes and a slip of paper that said, welcome. I learned English from church ladies and sitcom reruns, and I learned to make eggs to order from a man who called me Sweetie because he did not know how to pronounce my name yet. I cleaned rooms where the windows didn't open and the sheets smelled like other people's lives, and I saved dollars in envelopes and hid them inside other envelopes because I did not trust that I would get to keep anything I touched. When my husband died, the world narrowed to a hallway and a bed and a boy's face. I bought this place at 62. I hung the deed on the wall because I wanted something to look at that said I belonged here, besides my own mirror. I looked at my boy and then at the door where the desert air touched the room. 2 days ago, a stranger called me with a cheerful voice and a list of things I did not agree to. He asked where to park for a party at my diner. 300 people. My address. No permission. Not from a thief, from my family. I let the word sit in the room. Family is a word people throw like confetti and sometimes like stones. I am not here to shame my son, I said. I am here to stop shaming myself. For years, I let people use my space because love is easier when you don't say no. But love without respect is just appetite. It eats and nothing grows. There was a soft laugh, the kind people make when words find a place they recognize without asking first. I signed a contract this week that said my word matters. Today, we kept that word, and tonight, under my rules, we will have a small celebration and a big listen. Businesses are not backdrops, mothers are not maids, and permission is not a comment you add later. I lifted a coffee cup because champagne is for other places, and this is not other places. 2 boundaries, I said, to building something with your name on it, to learning, even when you are almost 70. The room did a human thing again. It clapped, and some of them stood up, and some of them wiped their faces as if someone had sprinkled pepper in the air.
A man who had laughed when the DJ tried to unload a fog machine nodded like a student who realized he had missed the point, but the teacher didn't fail him. Luca hugged me after I gave the mic back. He did it the way boys do when they are men and still somebody's child, with arms all the way around and a breath held like it might make the world stay still. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm proud of you." "Be proud of you the next time you tell a person no," I said. Tessa stood behind him, with something small and nervous in her face that did not belong to her brand. "We posted the statement," she said. "It's pinned for 30 days. We added a line. Desert Glow will fund a $500 monthly Silver Comet scholarship for culinary students at the community college. If that's okay, if you want to pick the students." "It's more than okay. It's useful." We did not have a DJ set. We had a guitar and a girl who sings like the inside of a bell, a girl whose mother cuts hair in a shop with mirrors on both sides so you see 100 versions of yourself if you look long enough. We didn't serve canapes. We served slices of pie with fork marks that proved someone ate them. People stayed until they remembered they had someplace else to be. Graham came back with a bouquet that looked like it had been stolen from a prop department and said, "If we ever write a diner owner with a spine, we'll call you to get the dialogue right." And I said, "Tell him she already exists." When I locked the door, Inez leaned her head on the window and breathed the way tired people breathe when the air goes soft. "You did it," she said.
"We did it," I said. "Paper and people, both." I fell asleep without seeing the ceiling fan turn. I didn't dream of paperwork or people, and when I woke, the coffee smelt the same as it always does, and the floor felt under my feet the way it always does, like a promise backed by a signature. The week came like a week. Graham's wire hit my account. A man called from the Arizona film office and asked if he could list my diner as a location, and I said yes if the paperwork had a square with numbers I liked. A woman wrote me an email in which she used the word partner so many times I had to count them, and by the end of the month, the Comet had been the backdrop for a soda commercial and a soldier saying goodbye in a movie that will be good whether or not anyone sees it. I learned to recognize the look of gaffers who don't touch anything without asking, and I learned to love the sound of a director saying that's a wrap, because it means a promise was kept, and when promises are kept, people sleep. The scholarship announcement went up on the community college bulletin board, the real one and the digital one. The first student who wrote me a letter was named Emmy, and she said she wanted to learn how to make a pie crust that doesn't shrink, and she said she was the first in her family to do anything with a kitchen that wasn't just keeping people alive. And she said she cried in the produce aisle the day she realized herbs smell like hope when you crush them. I read the letter out loud to Inez, and she held her towel over her heart like the towel was the thing that could keep her together. We gave Emmy the first check and told her to buy a chef's knife and a pair of shoes that don't hurt when you stand for 10 hours. She came in that Saturday with a smile and a notebook and a pen and wrote down the way I cut butter into flour like I was giving her something worth more than a scholarship. And maybe I was. Luca started knocking before he came in the back door. The first time he did it, I didn't understand what the sound was. He stood there with a bouquet from the grocery store and a face like a boy who is sorry about mud on the carpet. "I came to check if Saturday is good for a family dinner," he said. "If not, we'll choose another week." Inez pretended to cough because she cried a little. We made a calendar rule and we kept it. The first time he forgot and texted me on a Tuesday to ask if he could film a segment on Thursday, I told him no without an explanation, and he said, "Understood." He started bringing the flowers without hoping it would earn him a favor, and the flowers looked better somehow when they weren't a ticket to something else. He went to talk to a friend about the way people in his industry talk about small businesses, like a supply chain instead of like people. He came home and said, "Mom, I said something out loud that nobody liked and I didn't die. You do not know the joy of a mother until you hear that sentence."
The ladies at the thrift store keep a copy of my speech printed on their staff corkboard because they say they have days when they forget that the little brown building with a sloping roof is theirs, not the town's. And they used to say yes to people who drop off a bag of clothes in the rain and give them a glare when the lady asks them to bring it inside. Now they say, I am here until 4, and then I go home to a chair that belongs to me. You will bring your donation between 10 and 4, or you will bring it to another place. We are not the curb. People ask if Luca and I went to therapy. We did not. We went to dinner once a week where we ate food we did not cook and did not take pictures of. He learned to sit in silence without grabbing his phone like a life preserver, and I learned to wait for him to ask me for a story instead of filling the quiet with things that sound like stories, but are really just apologies for being a person who says no. He told me about the first time he made a deck with animation in it and the way it felt like magic when he clicked play and it played. I told him about the first time I cracked 6 eggs with one hand and didn't get shell in the bowl. We called those moments what they were, the sound of a person believing they belong in a room. We both liked that sound. 6 months after the day the Comet became a classroom, the film office sent a young man with a camera to take pictures for their website. He asked me to stand by the window and look out like I was thinking about something important, and I said I was thinking about the coffee I was going to drink when he left. He laughed like a boy and took the picture anyway. He asked if he could get one by the deed on the wall, and I said yes, because that piece of paper has saved me more times than any saint I know. He asked what I would tell a woman who owns a place and keeps forgetting she is allowed to own it. Write your name where people can see it. Then protect the place it is written, I said. He blinked like someone who was going to think about a sentence in his car. Thank you, he said. The night before Thanksgiving, the Comet filled with the kind of noise that is not always pretty, but always right. People came home and sat under the neon with faces that looked like other faces beside them. A kid walked in with a backpack and saw the scholarship board with its letters and pictures and asked if he could write his name on a sticky note and put it under the word someday. He did. He stood back and looked at it the way you look at a map on a wall when you are trying to decide if the line you plan to take will get you where you mean to go. He ordered a slice of apple pie and ate it like time had finally slowed down enough for him to taste something. Inez tells me I softened after the night of the party, which is funny because I feel harder in the places that matter. Boundaries are fences, and I let mine sag for so long the goats walked through it whenever they wanted. I don't say yes to things because I am tired of saying no. I do not say no because I like the sound of it in my mouth. I say the word that keeps me sleeping at night. Sometimes the word is yes, and it tastes like coffee in the afternoon when your feet hurt but your heart is light. Sometimes the word is no, and it tastes like medicine that works, even if it's bitter. It's all right to prefer coffee, but medicine keeps you alive. A journalist called me and wanted to write a story with a headline that made me sound like a superhero or a villain depending on which audience clicked harder. I told her I am a diner owner with a locked back door and a coffee ring on my office desk. I told her I love my son, and sometimes love is a sign you hang on the door that says, this place closes at 8 and the kitchen closes at 7:30. She asked if I had a quote that would make people share the article. And I told her I am not a machine that prints quotes. I am a woman who learned a sentence and it changed my life. She asked for that sentence and I gave it to her. And when it ran on the paper's website, it fit next to a picture of me wiping a counter as if the day needed a mercy and found one. What I did is not spectacular. It is not even original. Women have been drawing lines and calling them home since men lived in caves big enough to echo. What felt spectacular was the quiet after. The way a Sunday morning sounded at the Comet with 6 regulars and 3 families who found us on a map, and a little girl who asked me if she could put the coin in the jukebox, even if she didn't have a quarter. I let her because she asked, and because sometimes the rules allow mercy. She picked a song her grandmother knew, and they danced by the pie carousel, and if life had ended in that moment, I think I would have been able to stand up straight at the gates and say, I did enough.
Sometimes an influencer stops by now, the kind with honest eyes and tired shoulders. They look around like they don't know where to set their ring lights, and then they put the ring lights back in the trunk. They sit down and order coffee and ask if they can take a picture of their slice when they're done with it. After, one said, whispering like she was misbehaving and I would forgive her for it. I want to show that I actually ate it. You do you, I said, but I like the afters. She ate the last bite and took a picture of the crumbs and said, "It feels more like a life than a feed." And I nodded like a person whose life had touched the edge of a feed and come back intact. Deacon keeps a copy of my terms on his desk. He shows them to couples who fight about calendars and to boys who think their mother is a faucet that will pour forever as long as they turn the handle. He cracks a joke sometimes about how the Gospel of Mallory is not in all translations, and then he says a thing that makes me feel like maybe I could sit in a pew without falling asleep. Anger can be a teacher if you don't let it be the principal. If there is a moral here, it is small and not very new. Ask before you use. Pay for what you use. Say people's names when you are in their house. Do not confuse a woman's patience for a contract. Do not confuse a brand's paraffin bright promise with a light you can live by. There are miracles to be found in paperwork and on plates and on nights when you think you will not be able to learn, and then you do. Sometimes late, I sit on the stool behind the counter when the lights are mostly off and the neon comet is the only star left. The dishwasher hums and the clock above the pie carousel clicks, and I can hear the traffic on the road like a river doing what it has always done. I take the deed down sometimes and set it on the counter, and I look at my name where the ink is a little faded and the line is a little crooked because my hand shook when I wrote it. I touch it the way a person touches a thing that looked imaginary for so long they still can't believe it is real. Then I put it back on the wall because the right place for a thing you own is where you can see it and where other people can see it too. I stand up slow because nearly 70 means standing up is a thing you do with your whole body if you want to do it right. I flip off the neon comet and listen to the last hum die. I lock the door. I go home. I sleep. I wake up. The coffee is the same. The floor under my feet is the same. The day feels new and the same at once. I unlock the door. I turn on the neon. I breathe in grease and beans, and the kind of clean you can't buy in a bottle. I say hello to the counter like it's a person who waits for me. I say good morning to the picture of my husband taped to the side of the fridge and to the note that says, "Pay Edison by the 15th. I turn the sign to open. I do not check my phone for applause because I do not need applause to pour coffee. Inez comes in humming a song from 1988 and tells me her sister's grandson got into a school out of state, and I say, "Bless him." And then I say, "Tell him to bring a sweater because even deserts get cold." And when the first customer of the day walks in and says, "You open?" I say the sentence I was always made to say and only now learned to mean. Yes, I tell them, but only because I decided to be.